Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the podcast you come to when you're finally ready to take fantasy hockey seriously. My name is Groot Nibbelink. I'm the creator of Apples and Ginos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy. In this podcast, I'm going to break down the most puzzling players league-wide as submitted by the Apples and Ginos Discord server. Let's get it. And welcome in, everyone, to another episode of Puzzling Players. Glad to be with you all on this wonderful Monday evening. I'm a little bit under the weather myself, dealing with some chills and what feels like the beginning of a fever. But we are going to power on through and get this thing out there for the people. We've got to get it done. We've got to get into some puzzling players. Number one on this list was Cutter Gauthier. Pretty interesting stuff. I didn't see that one coming for sure, but we can dig in on Cutter Gauthier. Gauthier does have 4 points in his last 5 games. The Ducks are currently playing right now, and he does not have a point, at least yet at this time. What are they? In the late second period now. So nothing so far. His ice time has ticked down a little bit in the last 2 games. Before tonight, he didn't have any points, and the shots have decreased a little bit as well. You can see 247th in shots per 60, 271 individual expected goals for per 60, still 59th in on-ice expected goals for per 60 as of the last 5 games. I have some trepidation that Gauthier could, just not be the all-world player that he was earlier on, especially if his ice time is going to come down. That's obviously probably should have been the baseline expectation. He's now on a 41-goal, 87-point pace on the season, still ranks 3rd in shots per 60 on the season, but was averaging closer to 18 minutes before this last little stretch. You see the IPP at 68%, shooting percentage 13.2%, on-ice shooting percentage up at 14.8%. So that still might be running a little hot, but I do think Cutter Gauthier has all the makings of a point-per-game player at the 18-minute-a-night level. I don't know what exactly to make of this few games where he's getting a little bit less ice time. I think that Granlund coming back has made Quenneville just try a few different combinations. They haven't been winning as much as of late as well, and that obviously leads to some lineup shakeup. And so that's all happening for him. But I mean, he's still playing with Neil Carlson here tonight at even strength. I'm altogether pretty unworried about Gauthier in the long run. And I do think that baseline expectation for him should still be a 75-ish point player, with potential for full point per game on the season, especially if he gets that 18-plus minutes a night rest of the way. Thomas Harley next. He has 3 games since returning, but no points in those games. Under 21 minutes a night, 171st in shots per 60, 84th individual expected goals for per 60, 202nd in on-ice expected goals for per 60. And the Stars are playing right now. Love talking about players while they're currently playing because it always ends fantastically. Overall, I think we can give some grace to Harley for just returning. I think that he's going to be fine without the top power play, which basically you have to assume that Heiskanen is going to have the top power play as long as he's healthy at this point in time. Without top power play, I still think Harley can be a 40 to 45 point guy with some decent shots and decent blocks. But yeah, it's got to actually come together at some point. He's been a bit banged up. He's had to deal with some different things, and that will, just set a player back from time to time. And so it wouldn't be that shocking if he, just didn't have the greatest season because of that. But overall, I'm not going to bake that in to some great extent. It's just something I have in the back of my mind. So Harley, I think 45-ish points should be the baseline expectation, unless we start to see that he's actively playing through something lingering or something along those lines. Austin Matthews, 3 goals, no assists in his last 5 games, 20.5 minutes average time on ice. He is 13th in shots per 60, 19th individual expected goals for per 60, 114th in on ice expected goals for per 60 over the last 5 games. On the season, 21 minutes a night, he's on a 41 goal, 66 point pace, which is just putrid. 10th in shots per 60, 9th individual expected goals for per 60, 102nd in on-ice expected goals for per 60. 55% IPP is just super puzzling for Matthews. Shooting under 13% is pretty wild as well. I think that 2 things can be true here. Austin Matthews deserves better than he's gotten so far, especially in terms of the assists. He definitely should have more assists based on that 55% IPP. He also probably should have more goals based on his career shooting percentage versus his 12.9 number. But at the same time, it's also probably a worse environment than even I envisioned at the beginning of the year. It really seems to me like Craig Berube doesn't have a counterpunch to deal with the problem that the Leafs roster currently has and their inability to generate offense. It really does seem to me like Berube's just stuck in the way that got them as far as it did last year, and he doesn't really have any other strategies or ideas on how to combat it other than just lineup shuffling. They've not changed really anything about their game. They are dealing with significant injuries on the back end that are making their ability to get out of their zone a lot more difficult than it has been under Berube so far in the Berube era. I think that he just doesn't know what to do with the current situation of the Leafs roster. He was doing fine when the Leafs roster was in a different state, when it was not as injured as it currently is. But in the state that it's currently in, I just don't think that Berube is going to put these players in the best position to succeed. That being said, even in not the best position to succeed, I do think Matthews can still put up 45 to 50 goals this year and should be in the 80-point range. Like, I really do think that that's where he should pace from here on out, unless we're dealing with something else. There's been a lot of speculation about underlying injury and, that he's, just dealing with something that will basically affect him for the rest of his career, or it slowed him down materially, whatever those, the back issues or the wrist issues. There's been plenty of stuff talked about with Matthews over the last number of years. I think that that's possible, but still his individual underlying numbers are still terrific. And I think that he's a pretty good player still. It's just the environment is it's hard to see at this point how the environment gets much better for him. And so it really just does come down to him being more efficient, and can he do that in his current circumstances? All right, I left a space in here because there was a question about the Carolina goaltending situation. Basically, I want no part of the Carolina goaltending situation. The Willie Won't-he with all of the goaltenders there is really terrifying to me. I know Bussy's got, 4 of the last 6 starts. That's great for him. I would be pretty shocked if he hung on to that. Brind'Amour has really tried to go 50-50 with his starters in the past. Bussy's the only one I would currently roster, but I would be watching these start patterns like a hawk, and if it starts to go to where he's not getting at least every other start, then I would be off him instantly. All right, let's get back to some comments. Canada Dizzle, what's up, Nate? Blake says, pristine audio from Nathan here. Yes, I think we figured out what the audio issue was. I tried to put up Christmas lights on my desk here, and they're just kind of laying across the back of my desk, but I think they were like, I don't know if it was the internet connection or like my power to my computer. Something was like feeding back, I think, into my computer from those Christmas lights. I think I didn't even know that was possible, but as soon as I turned them off and tried recording again, that seemed to work. And so far, it seems like it's working. I haven't had anybody complaining about the audio quality so far. I did some tests earlier today, and it seems like that did fix it. So, yeah, the more you know, I guess. Hashtag 0G from Dave, good to see ya. Smash a like, appreciate you. Yes, if you could hit the like button while you're watching this live stream, I would appreciate that for sure. David says, hey Nate, can you look at Fowler on power play 1, but not good at all this season for points? Yeah, I mean, it's not just Fowler, right? It's St. Louis in general. We talked a bit about Jim Montgomery and the St. Louis situation in general there. Fowler's only got 1 assist in his last 5. I don't believe he got in on the only goal there so far for St. Louis. I think it was Dvorsky, right? Dvorsky from Hugh McGing and Justin Falk. Amazing. Cam Fowler, 21 minutes a night, 147th shots per 60, 78th in on-ice expected goals for per 60. Nothing to write home about, really. 2-goal, 30-point pace on the season. Yeah, maybe it could get a tiny bit better for Fowler, but I don't think it's going to get much better, to be quite honest with you. It's not a situation I'm excited about, for sure. Last ones, good evening, Nate. What have they done to my King Cutter? No worries. I'm preaching patience with Cutter Gauthier. All right. Pakora, hey Nate, which side would you take in this trade in Bangers Cats? Larkin and Nuke for Fantilli and Konechny. It's an interesting deal. I think it seems pretty fair on the face of it. And Konechny and Larkin are probably pretty similar value-wise. And Nichushkin and Fantilli are probably pretty similar value-wise. I don't have a strong lean on that. I guess maybe I would. Bangers Cats. Wow. I think Larkin is the best player in the deal, but not by a lot. And I don't know. I think it's fair. Like, you're kind of getting the same thing either way. I guess you're probably getting a few more hits, right, with the Fantilli Konechny side. I think it might depend on which categories you're trying to attack there, which side that you would want to go with. So, yeah, final answer. It really just depends on the categories that you're looking to build on. Liam, I got that Ehlers for point trade done. So far, so good. Thanks, Nate. That is pretty good stuff. I'd be pretty happy about that if I were you. Excited to hear about Gunther. He's been the poster child for puzzling. Have him in one of my leagues. Don't know what to do with them. Yes, Gunther is on the list. We'll get there. Thoughts on Montembeault? Not interested in rostering Montembeault currently unless he gets multiple starts in a row or at least establishes himself back as in a 50-50 times. Sure. He's been awful this year. Who's the best roster? Better roster. What did I say? Best roster? Who's the best roster? Jordan Eberle or Matthew Nyes? Jordan Eberle or Matthew Nyes? Matthew Nyes for sure. I'm curious to look at this though and see why you might be thinking about Jordan Eberle. I mean, I like Eberle, don't get me wrong. And obviously Nyes has had a little bit of a slow stretch here, as have a lot of the Leafs, but I mean, Nyes is still on an 85-point pace and Eberle's on a 52-point pace. Nyes is getting more ice time. His underlying numbers look better. Yeah, it's Matthew Nyes, and it's not particularly close for me. Steve Larini, good to see you. Matthews was going around 6 ADP in drafts. Would you go as low as a Kyle Connor, 14 ADP this season in terms of getting off of Matthews or keeping Matthews? Yeah, it could depend on your format for sure. The more it tends towards assists are just as valuable as goals, the more weight assists have relative to goals, and the more weight, the less weight on peripherals, because Matthews is still pretty great in terms of blocks and shots, obviously, pretty elite in terms of those numbers. Not that Connor's not bad in terms of the shots, but Matthews' peripherals definitely outclass Connor there. So I think it would matter how high the points weight relative to the peripherals is. I think that they're a lot closer than I would have thought at the beginning of the season for sure. But Again, I don't really like these one-for-one deals unless I have a really strong thought that the player I'm acquiring is undervalued. Um, yeah, I have to have a pretty big reason to trade away my first round player. And I guess it could be in your case that you're just really scared of the downside with Matthews. I'm not as scared of that downside with Matthews. I think his underlying numbers suggest that he should be better even if nothing really changes. So I'm not that scared of the downside rest of the season with Matthews. But yeah, I think that's what I would say about that. It really depends on the peripheral weighting. Apparently, Minnesota traded for a guy named Quentin Hughes. Would your projection on Zuccarello change at all with this addition, once healthy, of course? Yeah, I mean, I think it raises the floor for basically everybody in Minnesota. Zuccarello should be back on that power play when he's back, and that'll be an especially big spot for him to gain some Quinn Hughes exposure for sure. I think it's going to be a net positive for just about everybody on that team, not named Brock Faber. Benji's asking about Thomas Harley, so I talked about him already. I'm not sure if he caught that or not, but basically 40 to 45 point defenseman. I think he's plenty rosterable. I think that he's just having a slow start, getting back into the swing of things, and we should be happy having him. But yeah, definitely not the power play one we were hoping for with him. Do you mind checking out Jarvis? How would you rank him rest of season versus Hischier, Hagel, and Point? That will depend a fair bit on your league settings for sure. Jarvis, 19 minutes a night, 2 goals in his last 5, 119th in shots per 60, 106 individual expected goals for per 60, 98th in on ice expected goals for per 60, on a 46 goal, 67 point pace, which is kind of funny. Just scoring, but not distributing the puck anymore, I guess. That's Jarvis. Versus, I would take him over Hischier. I think I would take Hagel and Point over him still. That is a much closer proposition. I guess if you need the positional eligibility that Seth Jarvis brings to the table, then I could be persuaded about a guy like Seth Jarvis over a guy like Braden Point rest of season. Points on ice numbers are pretty terrific, and his individual numbers have been pretty terrific the last little bit too. I think he's really going to heat up and have a great second half. So I'm pretty excited about having Braden Point in the spot where I do have him. And yeah, I just don't know that Jarvis has, a major second gear left. Hagel and Jarvis, I think, are relatively close, but I think I'd still take Hagel there. So yeah, I think I'm going Point and Hagel over Jarvis and Hischier. Same tier, but probably slightly below. Maybe that's just recency bias, though. Any thought on Kane versus Verhaeghe rest of season in a points league? Goals, assists, power play points, plus minus shots on goal and blocks. Wondering about the potential for Verhaeghe to go off when Tkachuk comes back. I think there's also the potential for Verhaeghe to get minimized when Tkachuk comes back. And so I think Verhaeghe has a lot more volatility than Patrick Kane does rest of season. So that's something to think about. You having power play points is a feather in the cap for Kane for sure. Shots on goals, probably close to a wash this year. Yeah, I think I would take Kane there, personally, but it's not that far off, so I could see it either way. Mark Kastelich and Svechkov deep dive. All right. We're going deep into the bank for these two. Svechkov has been getting some assists alongside Steven Stamkos. He has 4 assists in his last 5 games, almost 18 minutes a night, which is not too shabby. 187 shots per 60, 291 individual expected goals for per 60. 5th in Corsi 4 per 60, 4th in scoring chances 4 per 60, 67th in on ice expected goals 4 per 60. Those are pretty good numbers. So yeah, that's Svechnikov. I thought I got Svechkov. Disregard all of that. I picked up Andrei Svechnikov. Did they have the same stat line? Is that why? Now I'm just doing this for my own. They have the exact same stat line. 4 assists in the last 5 games. I got very confused because I saw exactly what I expected to see from Svechnikov for Svechkov. Okay, Fedor Svechkov, 4 assists, no goals. His last 5 games, 14 and a half, roughly average time on ice, a little bit down there. 158 shots per 60, 119. Individual expected goals for per 60, 21st in on ice expected goals for per 60. A lot of that coming due to Steven Stamkos's recent hot streak, who Svechkov has been centering for the last little bit. I don't mind Svechkov if the Nashville schedule is good. The problem is the Nashville schedule is not very good overall in the season. This week they have a Monday, Wednesday to start the week, and that's about as good as it's ever been for the Nashville Predators this year. So if that does it for you, you could have done that. But obviously that game is already in progress here on Monday, so you're not getting that either. So yeah, I like Svechkov fine. I think that without power play 1, he's at best a 40-point player. And yeah, that could be a streamer level player in your league if it's a deeper league for sure. The problem is, again, the schedule. It's just not going to allow you to fit in Svechkov a lot of the time. And I don't think he's a hold in many formats. Kastelich has 2 goals and 4 assists. Just under 15 minutes average time on ice, 117 shots per 60, 82nd in individual expected goals for per 60, 225th in on ice expected goals for per 60. Kastelich is a big time hitter, which is his main appeal for bangers leagues. Honestly, his underlying numbers don't look terribly unsustainable, so the 15 goal, 30 point pace, not out of the question for me. Rest of season for Mark Kastelich, so yeah, not a bad streamer, especially in bangers heavy formats. Hello, Nate. Would you drop Allmark for Vladar? I have Wedgwood in Wallstat. Category League wins, goals against average, save percentage, and shutouts. I feel like those are 2 goaltenders who are going to see a fair amount of volume, who are both playing in really good defensive systems. I don't think I would drop one for the other, honestly, at this point. So I think Allmark and Vladar, I would probably, I don't project goalie performance, as I say many times on this podcast, but if I was going to project them rest of the season, I would probably project them very similarly. Darren Ho 7019, I just did a Johnston, Heischer, Trennan for Matthews, Velarde, and Hart trade in Bangers Cats League. I already feel like I lost the trade. It depends. It depends. Let's see. A cop-out answer, I know, but it really does matter what Matthews does first and foremost. Yeah, Matthews is what this hinges on for sure. So, as I said, I think he can be better, and I think that we should expect him to be better rest of season. I think there's a pretty good chance that you want it. Carl Calvert, I have 2 ESPN leagues, 0 goalies between the 2 of them. Settings make it more advantageous to have no goalies in ESPN leagues, 9-1 in one and 8-2 the other. Nice. True 0G. You love to see it. Benji, thoughts on Valerie Nichushkin? We can throw Nichushkin in here. Nichushkin has 2 goals, 1 assist for 3 points in his last 5. Just over 17 minutes average time on ice, 32nd shots per 60, 43rd individual expected goals for per 60, and 113th in on ice expected goals for per 60. Nichushkin is playing on the second line with Landeskog and Nelson, so that's a solid spot to be, but he is power play 2 as well currently. And yeah, that's just going to limit him a little bit, right? It's just going to hold down the ceiling. He's on 27 goal, 55 point pace, and those numbers are probably a tad light. The 9.9% on ice shooting percentage you think could come up there. So yeah, I think he can be a 60, maybe even 65 point player as a line 2 power play 2 player there in Colorado, just because the environment's so good. Playing with Nelson and Landeskog is a pretty solid line. So yeah, I don't mind that for Nichushkin. And he does have upside still for more if he gets elevated to the McKinnon line or the top power play, which I would bet money on Nichushkin will be on that top power play at some point in the rest of the season. Since we're talking about the Preds, could we look at how Forsberg is looking under the hood? Forsberg does have a goal here tonight against the St. Louis Blues. So, take that for what it's worth, I guess. But Forsberg, He has 2 goals, 5 points in his last 5 games before tonight. 18 minutes average time on ice, 123rd shots per 60, 34th individual expected goals for per 60, 65th in on ice expected goals for per 60. 29 goal, 58 point pace on the season. He's 20th in shots per 60 on the season, 46th in on ice expected goals for per season. On the season, 76% IPP, 11.3% shooting percentage is low for him, 8.5% on ice shooting percentage is super low for him. I like Forsberg still. I'd be very willing to buy low on him if I was able to. Now he started to turn it on, so maybe you can't buy low on him anymore. But yeah, I don't have a lot of qualms about Forsberg. Maybe he doesn't reach the preseason projections anymore on the season, but I do think he'll be much, much better than he has been so far. Nashville as a team looks like they're turning it around a little bit. The underlying numbers suggest that they are. So yeah, I think there's a pretty good chance that Forsberg gets back to the player we know and love for a good chunk of the rest of the season. Carl, could I move on from Darnell Nurse and or Morgan Riley? You certainly could. Obviously depends on the league and what else you got going on. Morgan Riley is still on the top power play as of the last game. Probably hanging on to any defenseman on top power play, honestly. So probably not doing that one. Darnell Nurse really depends on your situation in terms of the banger weighting. Curious your thoughts on a trade I made. 12-man Banger Cats, where I have the strongest defense and best goals, assist, power play points. I traded Natchez and Dahlin for Matthews and EP40 to help blocks. Thoughts? I think he probably gave up. I think Matthews has the highest ceiling here, but feels more and more unlikely that he'll reach it. Yeah, I think I would take the Natchez Dahlin side. I understand what you're going for here. Yeah, I understand what you're going for there. I just don't think I would do that. I'm not trying to get more Vancouver Canucks on my team right now either. Hey Nate, Kemper injured. Would you add a St. Louis or Buffalo goalie as your second goalie? A couple types scoring. If I was going to add a St. Louis or Buffalo goalie, it would be Joel Hofer. Binnington has been horrific. Hofer is the only one I'd entertain at the moment. Thoughts on Seth Jones and if he's a sell high right now? Seth Jones we can throw on the list here and take a quick look. 2 goals, 5 points in his last 5 games. I believe he's got an assist I saw already in this game. That's at the end of the second period here against Tampa Bay right now. Let me just confirm that I'm correct about that. Yeah, he's got another assist on Anton Lundell goal. So keeping up that point per game stretch here. 23.5 average time on ice, 55th shots per 60, 66 individual expected goals for per 60, 37th on ice, expected goals for per 60, 13 goal, 48 point pace on the season. And the underlying numbers look really good. The IPP looks normal. The shooting percentage maybe a touch high, but nothing crazy. On-ice shooting percentage, honestly, might be a little bit low and should get better when Tkachuk returns, I would assume. So, yeah, I mean, if you can get a really high return for him because he's hot at the moment, then sure, I'm willing to entertain that. But I think this is a 55 point defenseman with good peripherals that I'm not in a hurry to get off of, personally. Yahoo Bangers League just traded Gauthier and Sorokin for Panarin. Wanted to get off Gauthier. Have Dostal, can only start one goalie. Anyway, thoughts rest of season. Wanted to open a stream spot. In a Bangers League, I guess that's not as great, but I like Panarin a lot. I'm never going to be too mad at getting a 100-point player on my squad. Can you see how Byfield and Monahan look under the hood? I talked about Byfield with Blake on the flagship show that came out earlier today, so definitely go back and check that one out. Basically, Byfield looks terrible. Sean Monahan, I can throw in here for a moment. Monahan, 1 assist his last 5, 19 minutes a night still. Underlying numbers are horrific, so there's that. He is still getting power play 1, not doing a whole lot with it at the moment. But he was doing this and then had another random hot stretch. Columbus is casting around with some different line combinations, so it wouldn't be too shocking to see him get even strength exposure to Kirill Marchenko again here shortly. So there's some hope there, but yeah, at the moment, he's definitely nothing more than a streamer. All right, we made it through the comments. We're back to the list. Gabriel Landeskog next up. Gabriel Landeskog, also a player that Blake and I talked about on the flagship show. Basically, I love the underlying numbers for Landeskog, and I'm not interested in moving off of him at the moment. If he gets off the top power play and he gets down to the third line, then yeah, I might consider moving off him. But while he's getting 17.5 minutes a night with these underlings, I'm all about it. Adam Fantilli, no goals, 2 assists in his last 5, almost 20 minutes a night, 104th shots per 60, 140 individual expected goals for per 60, 77th in on ice expected goals for per 60. It's a 28 goal, 54 point pace on the season for Fantilli. His underlying numbers look pretty sustainable, maybe even a little light on the on ice shooting percentage. So yeah, I think that Fantilli should do a little better than this. His underlying numbers are not bad, they're not great, and yeah, as long as he's getting Marchenko exposure and getting power play 1, I'm still pretty in on Fantilli. A little bit of a cold stretch for him here. Dougie Hamilton, 0 points in his last 5. I think it goes back actually a fair bit further than that. 22 minutes average time on ice, 48th shots per 60, 55th individual expected goals for per 60, 39th in on ice expected goals for per 60. He has only 8 points in 29 games this year, which is pretty wild. I have to wonder if all of the talk about Quinn Hughes coming there was potentially in Dougie Hamilton's head. Elliot Friedman said on the 32 Thoughts pod that he had heard that New Jersey had had some trades vetoed by their players, which basically just means that they asked some of their players with no trade clauses if they were willing to waive their no trade clause to be traded, and those players said no. So Dougie Hamilton does have a no trade clause. It would make a lot of sense that he was potentially being shopped, in my opinion. So yeah, I wonder if maybe the outside noise or maybe even the internal noise is getting to Dougie Hamilton a little bit here. That being said, his underlines are still good. I do expect him to bounce back. I've seen him dropped in one spot, and everybody rushed to the waiver wire and placed some pretty big bids to get him on their squad. Yeah, I still think Dougie Hamilton is fine. I think it gets better. New Jersey's hurting right now just with all the Meyer is away from the team. Hughes injured, obviously. They just don't have depth, and so that's hurting the offense there for sure. And yeah, Dougie Hamilton's not getting power play 1 and hasn't been for most of the season either, so he's more of a 40-ish point guy in this scenario. And yeah, unfortunately, that's where he's living currently. I would be pretty interested to see where he could go if he were to get dealt, because I do think that the only reason somebody's acquiring Dougie Hamilton and his $9 million salary is that they believe he can be their power play 1 quarterback and do all those offensive things for them that he's most well known for. So I would be actually pretty excited if he were to get traded. Kevin Fiala, 1 goal, 4 points in his last 5. I don't believe he got anything. No, end of the first 0-0 between LA and Dallas as I speak here. Fiala, just over 18 minutes a night, 75th shots per 60, 57th in individual expected goals for per 60, and 104 in on ice expected goals for per 60. 29 goal, 58 point pace on the season. I think he deserves better than this. 9.1% on ice shooting percentage is just horrendous. But also, it's the Kings, similar to the way I feel about Matthews and the Berube system. I feel the same about Hiller and the LA system. I just think there's not a lot of upside there. And Fiala should be better. I think he can score at a 70-point pace rest of the season, but I'm not expecting much more. Vincent Trocheck, friend of the show, Vinny Tro, 0 goals, 3 assists in his last 5. Don't think he got in on this goal here for the Rangers, the only one so far. No, it's Panarin and Lafreniere with the assists. Shout out the head-to-head streamer deathmatch. Lafreniere, my pick for this week. Trocheck skating over 22.5 minutes average time on ice, 354th in shots per 60, 368 in individual expected goals for per 60, 197 in on ice expected goals for per 60. He is basically refusing to show up to work at those levels. Say it ain't so, Vinny Tro. On the season, like, the numbers are not really any better. He's being relatively efficient with an 18.5% shooting percentage. But yeah, very, very weird stuff under the hood from Vinny Tro right now. I don't really know what to make of that, to be honest with you. Maybe it's just that they're playing him so much right now that he's like just coasting through the middle of the ice and not getting as involved as he normally would. I don't know. I haven't watched enough games to make that proclamation, but yeah, definitely weird stuff under the hood. That being said, he's still playing with Panarin, still on the top power play. As long as that's happening, I'm going to hang on to Vinny Tro. I just don't know. I'm concerned about the underlying numbers. There's no two ways about it. So Svechnikov, not Svechkov, who we talked about earlier, but Svechnikov, also 4 assists and no goals in the last 5 games. 17 minutes, 45 seconds average time on ice, 187th shots per 60, 291st in individual expected goals for per 60, 67th in on ice expected goals for per 60. I want to be more in on Svechnikov than I currently am. He is on the top line as of the last game and top power play. So that's working. It's just the time on ice is never going to be great with him. The underlying numbers, like the 7.9% shooting percentage, 8.7% on ice shooting percentage, that should increase in a big way. So as long as he's getting line 1 power play 1, I'm hanging on. But if it changes, then I definitely have to reconsider. Dylan Guenther, 5 goals in his last 5 games, 17 minutes average time on ice, 76th in shots per 60, 144 in individual expected goals for per 60, and 56th in on ice expected goals for per 60. It's fair to wonder if Guenther can keep this up while playing at even strength with Barrett Hayton, who's recently been scratched, and Lawson Krause, who is nobody's idea of an offensive wonderkind. But Guenther is a pretty special talent in his own right. 8th in shots per 60 on the season, 34th in individual expected goals for per 60. His 36-goal, 65-point pace on the season looks pretty sustainable to me, even with these kind of line mates. So I'm not actually that worried about Guenther. It just seems like, we're hoping for the nuclear season where he's going off for 40, 45 goals and close to a point per game. I don't think that's happening, especially with Logan Cooley out of the lineup now for 8 weeks. Yeah, I don't think the ceiling is quite there anymore for Dylan Guenther, and he always has just this 17-minute deployment. Torini really never wants to give him that 19-plus superstar level deployment. If he did, I'd be very excited about Dylan Guenther. Chris Kreider, 2 assists in the last 5, 19 minutes a night, 50th in shots per 60, 11th in individual expected goals for per 60 entering tonight's game, and 41st in on-ice expected goals for per 60. In this game here, I saw that he was playing on a line with Mason McTavish and Beckett Seneca. And that line, at least at this point in the game, was leading all the forward lines in even strength time on ice, for whatever that's worth. Kreider's underlying numbers look really good here. I do think he deserves a good chunk of the 38-goal, 62-point pace that he's currently on. The 19.7% shooting percentage is probably coming down, but he is one of those net front guys who gets a lot of high-danger looks, and so you wouldn't be too surprised if he has a pretty high conversion rate. Overall, I really like Chris Kreider. I think he should be on a roster in just about every league. Josh Norris has 4 assists in the last 3 games, 16.5 minutes average time on ice, 334th in shots per 60 though, 299 individual expected goals for per 60, but 20th in on ice expected goals for per 60. Apparently he's just a distributor now, and that's all he does. I don't know what exactly to make of that. Buffalo fired their general manager, Kevin Adams, today, replaced him with their senior advisor, Jarmo Kekalainen, who was recently seen as the GM of the Columbus Blue Jackets. I want Josh Norris to play with Tage Thompson on the top line. Alex Tuck, who he was playing with in the last game, is obviously no slouch either. But yeah, it's not the best situation for Josh Norris at even strength. He has been there a lot in the past, is still on top power play. I'm pretty in on Josh Norris. I think he can be a pretty consistent 65-point player in this current setup. This is a weird one. Sebastian Aho has 0 points in his last 5 games. Over 20 minutes a night still, so that's not the issue. 237 in shots per 60, 192 individual expected goals, 4 per 60, 117 in on-ice expected goals, 4 per 60. Very, very weird stuff. It's a 23-goal, 67-point pace for Aho now. And this is just unheard of stuff for him. 59% IPP, 11.7% shooting percentage, 10.6% on ice shooting percentage. All those should be higher for a man of his talents. It is just pretty hard to figure out what's going on there. I mean, an injury could be a reason why this is trending so badly for him as of late. I haven't seen any of that speculation online anywhere, so I am not really espousing that as a probable reason for this. More likely, it's just a bit of a cold streak, and they get their feet under them again, and he starts cooking again. But yeah, it's a data point, right? It's something you have to take into account. Things are not going well for Sebastian Aho under the hood or on the score sheet currently, and I think he's been so consistent over the last number of years that he's earned your respect in terms of not freaking out when he has a cold stretch like this. But at the same time, I'm also watching a little bit more carefully now, especially on the underlying stuff. Dylan Strome has just a goal and an assist in his last 5 games, almost 18.5 minutes average time on ice, 273 shots per 60, 72nd in individual expected goals for per 60, though, and 25th in on-ice expected goals for per 60. Still playing at even strength alongside Anthony Beauvillier and Alex Ovechkin, and obviously on the top power play there in Washington as well. He's on a 16-goal, 63-point pace on the season. I think the IPP comes up in a pretty big way. He's at 52% right now. That's definitely going to improve for him. So, yeah. I think that Strome should get back more towards a 70-point player the rest of the season, and I'd be pretty comfortable acquiring him now if somebody's worried about him. I don't see any reason under the hood or anything to think differently about Dylan Strome than I did at the beginning of the year. Clayton Keller, also just a goal and an assist in his last 5. 21 minutes average time on ice, 245th shots per 60, 298 individual expected goals for per 60, 118 in on-ice expected goals for per 60 for Clayton Keller. Just a 24-goal, 68-point pace on the season now. I think that Clayton Keller has to be better than this. It doesn't really make sense how bad he's been as of late in my mind. The on-ice numbers on the season are still quite good. 26th in on-ice expected goals for per 60 on the season, and 19th in individual expected goals for on the season. Like, on the season, his numbers look really, really good. It's just this last stretch that is the more concerning affair. You can say that's maybe just due to the fact that, they do have injuries that they're dealing with, and he's trying to do too much or something like that. The power play is not where they want it to be. A number of reasons, I guess. Again, Clayton Keller's been so consistent over the last couple of years that I'm going to have to see a pretty extended stretch where things are going quite poorly for him to really get worried. This is, again, though, a data point where I'm saying, this is not what I expected. This is not the production or the underlyings that I expect from Clayton Keller at this time. Another blank spot here, that was for Stuart Skinner, who was requested by the Apples and Ginos Discord server. I mean, you can grab Stuart Skinner. He just becomes exactly like any number of other goaltenders on bad teams for me. So I think that if you have a deep league and somebody's very worried about Skinner and they dropped him now that he's not on Edmonton, yeah, you can grab him. You just have to be aware of the fact that he's on Pittsburgh now, not on Edmonton. He's not going to win as many games there. He's a fine streamer / low end goalie 2, maybe high end goalie 3 option for 12-team leagues. And last one here is Tyler Bertuzzi, and then we'll close it out with the comments. Tyler Bertuzzi has 2 goals in his last 5, over 18 minutes a night, 199th shots per 60, 242 individual expected goals for per 60, 309 in on ice expected goals for per 60. Connor Bedard is going to be out a while, and so this 45 goal, 74 point pace for Tyler Bertuzzi feels very likely to come down in a big way, not only because of the 25% shooting percentage and the 14.3% on ice shooting percentage. I thought about dropping Tyler Bertuzzi already in the one spot where I have him. It's going to be tough for him, quite honestly, without Connor Bedard there. I think he was benefiting tremendously from how good Bedard has been this year, and it's going to be pretty tough for him to replicate any level of that success without Bedard there. I think that it's hard to make a proclamation on Bertuzzi after such a big change and such a singular change, but I think I would put him right back in that 50-point range as of right now as a projection, an 82 game, 50-point pace for Bertuzzi as long as Bedard is out would be my projection there. All right. We get back into the comments and we'll close it out there. Thoughts on Heineman? Emil Heineman we can throw in here. Heineman has been a bit hilarious for me. He's got no points in the last 5, but 18 minutes a night. The shots have gone away, 348th in shots per 60, so he's not doing that anymore. The underlyings look pretty bad. They don't have... They're losing players to injury left, right, and center. He's on a 25-goal, 40-point pace. I do think he ran a bit hot with the shooting percentage probably to get there. If he's not shooting the puck anymore, which he's not as of late, I don't think he's rosterable. So I would drop Heineman at the moment. But yeah, especially with the hits that he provides, he's definitely an option for a stream. Nate, Cats League, where goalies are valuable, extremely wire. Not sure what that means. I'm guessing you're trying to go for extremely thin on the wire. Currently rostering 6. Quick, Hofer, Cord, Melka, Fowler, Wedgwood. 4 start minimum. Want to get off this goalie train. What do you recommend? From this list, I think you have to hang on to a couple of the volume guys there, into Cord and Vamelka, just to hang on to some version of that volume. Fowler, I don't really think is going to take over the net in Montreal. Maybe hold on to him for one more start, see how that one goes, and just go start by start with him from now on. Quick for this week is nice because you expect him to get the second half of these 2 back-to-backs that the Rangers have during this week. So I don't mind that for this week. Hofer, I actually think, could take over the St. Louis net. I think Jim Montgomery's seat is getting hot, and as much organizational inertia there might be around starting Jordan Binnington as much as possible, if Joel Hofer is the only guy getting you W's, then you're going to keep starting him, I think, at some point. Puckstead asked for thoughts on Bertuzzi, so obviously we did that one. Could I drop Clayton Keller or Dylan Guenther? I would not do that personally, especially not this week with Utah's schedule. Dougie just dropped in my league. Would you drop Fab to add? Absolutely, I would. How would you rank Thomas, Ehlers, Schmaltz, Patrick Kane, Benson, and Eklund in bangers? Cats? Good question. I think Kane is the safest at this point. Thomas probably should be the highest, but I am pretty worried about St. Louis overall there. So I think Kane and Thomas are same tier for me, honestly, at this point. Then Ehlers and Schmaltz in the next tier, and then Benson and Eklund in the tier below that. Last one says Cutter, let's go. I'm guessing that means that we got a Cutter Gauthier goal. Very nice. Power play goal from Seneca and Zellweger. Very good stuff. Hey Nate, what do you think of Raymond Trocheck for Matthews or Reinhart? Points league, goals are 3, assists are 2, power play points are 1, shots are 0.12, hits and blocks are 0.2. So basically not a lot of weight on shots is what I'm seeing here. That limits Matthews' value for sure. Raymond and Trocheck, though, I think that's probably worth it. The blocks are not, yeah, it's not as peripheral heavy, which definitely takes away from Matthews' value. Yeah, I don't think it's as much of a dunk as it would appear on the surface, but I still think I would do it. If I was going to take one of them, I guess I would still take Matthews, but yeah, Reinhardt is obviously a terrific player too. I think he's got 2 goals in this game already for Florida, so there's that. Rest of the season, can you rank Smith, Coronado, Nelson, Kyrou, and Bangers Cats? In Bangers Cats, yeah. Will Smith is going to be out for a while, we've heard, so there's that. Kyrou also going to be out for a bit. Coronado, Nelson, I honestly feel like they're not all that dissimilar. When assuming health for each of them, I think Smith and Kyrou are going to get you the most points. Coronado is going to provide you the most shots. Nelson's going to be the safest. So yeah, it's tough to rank them exactly. But if you're just going for the points side of it, which kind of seems like you might be given this here, then maybe Smith or Kyrou. Who do you think I can trade Matthews for? Is Gunther and another player unrealistic? No, I think you could probably get that pretty easily. I don't know if I'd do that, but I think you could. Hi, I got offered the following. I should smash accept, right? I don't see the follow-up. So, oh, here we go. Getting Quinn Hughes and Joel Eriksson and Orlov for my Jarvis and Gunther and Lev Shinov and Buyam. Yes, I would smash accept on that, if only to get Quinn Hughes. All right. Interested in your take on Doan and Evangelista, if you can plug them in? Absolutely, we can. Josh Doan. I like that Josh Doan's been playing on top line, top power play. It's definitely a good spot to be. I like that Evangelista is getting some good exposure as well. He's got 5 assists in his last 5. 17 minutes a night, 171st in shots per 60, 277 individual expected goals for per 60, but 30th in on-ice expected goals for per 60. Evangelista's on a 63-point pace on the season now and seems to just be climbing in his coach's estimation. Only on an 11-goal pace, but that's also with a 6.1% shooting percentage. That should be almost double that, so he should be more like a 22-goal pace. Probably still this 60 to 65-point pace makes a lot of sense, though. Maybe more if the average time on ice continues to climb, though. So, yeah, I love Luke Evangelista. I think he definitely deserves all the flowers he's getting currently. Josh Doan, 2 goals, 4 points in his last 5, 60.5 minutes average time on ice, 201 in shots per 60, 98 in individual expected goals for per 60, 58 in on-ice expected goals for per 60, 26-goal, 59-point pace for him on the season. He ranks 7th in the league in individual expected goals for per 60 on the season and 18th in on-ice expected goals for per 60 on the season. Really like Josh Doan as well. Don't think he's quite a hold in most 12-team leagues. I don't think he's quite reached that level yet, mostly just because of the deployment. Like, I really like the player. It's just the actual raw minutes. Like, line 1, power play 1, but the raw minutes are not quite there. So that's the only thing that's missing for me for Josh Doan to become like a 65-point guy, a potentially 30-goal guy, and to really turn into something special. Who's your favorite 0G volume streamers right now? Basically anybody who's available in my league who's going to get me 2 games played this week is how I mostly do this. So I literally just go to the wire. I compare what's out there to my the goalies that I have. I like Jet Greaves. I like Dan Vladar. I like John Gibson right now. Those are pretty far and away the top 3. Joel Hofer is another guy that I've been into. He's given up 3 to Nashville tonight, so maybe he's not going to get as many starts as I want him to relative to Bennington rest of the way, but definitely a guy that I am into in deeper leagues for sure. All right, where were we at? Do you like what Josh Stone is doing lately? We just talked about that, so that's good timing. Just wondering what Brady's underlings look like, if they're mostly in line with what he's looked like in the past. Is he exactly the player we expected at the beginning of the year? It's a fair question, so we can throw him in here. Let's get rid of Emil Heineman and those terrible underlying numbers. Look at Brady Tkachuk. 0 goals, 4 assists in his last 5, over 19.5 minutes average time on ice. 14th in shots per 60, 53rd individual expected goals for per 60, 54th on ice expected goals for per 60. So basically, yeah, it's not like truly elite, but yeah, it's pretty close. So I'm not worried about Brady at all. Is Kopitar worth grabbing with Byfield out? I like the line 1, power play 1. Doubt it will hold. You could stream him if Los Angeles has a good schedule, you could stream him. But basically, it's assist or bust with Kopitar. And keep forever, who you got from Jack Hughes, Matty T, J Rob, ZW, Natchez, Jarvis, Leo, Cutter. Cats include hits plus minus blocks, so tough. Yeah, not sure how many keepers you got there, so not sure who we can keep, but yeah, all those guys I'm trying to keep for sure, especially the first 5, and probably Leo and probably Cutter as well. Jarvis is the last one on that list for me at the moment. Quick look at Schmaltz if possible. He had a crazy 9-shot game the other night, wondering how he's doing now that he's centering line 1. Nick Schmaltz has 5 points in his last 5, not affected by Clayton Keller's recent cold streak. Almost 21 minutes a night, 60th shots for 60, 30th individual expected goals for per 61, 33 in on-ice expected goals for per 60, 29 goals, 72-point pace on the season for Nick Schmaltz. Yeah, I think he is pretty close to this guy. I don't see a lot with this kind of deployment. I really don't see a reason why he can't hit 70 points this year. Dylan Vincent Trocheck, or Bennett rest of season. Goals for 3, assists for 2, plus minus 0.5, shots on goal 0.25, blocks 0.5. It's a pretty interesting question with these settings. No hits, which takes Bennett out of the running for me. I think I'd go Dylan Strome. How's your Public Banger Cats League going? If I remember correctly, it was 7 ads a week. Yeah. It is 7 ads a week. It is a lot of work, but it is pretty fun, I have to say. I can put it on the screen here. Here's the league. I'm in second place currently. Won 10-4-1 last week. Yeah, things are going pretty good, I'd say. I am really... with the 7 ads, I can really tailor my categories week by week, and I don't have to roster anybody I don't want to week. So I am really just analyzing my opponents and taking advantage of where they're not strong and beating them in those categories most weeks. And yeah, I hope to be there at the end of this thing. Hopefully I get the bye here. Yeah, there's kind of 3 of us at the top here currently that are all doing pretty well. So we'll see how it pans out over the next little bit. But yeah, $100 buy-in Bangers Cats League going pretty well so far. Put that away. Hofer Forsberg with Kumper injuries. I think you go Forsberg there. He's going to get probably every start if Kumper's injured for a while. Someone in my league wants my Forsberg and plus Riley. I'm assuming Morgan Riley. I offered them for his Jarvis and McAvoy, countered with Sherwood and McAvoy. Would you add a waiver level player, Patrick Kane, for the Jarvis deal? You're trading away Philip Forsberg here in Morgan Riley? I don't know that I would do that. To be honest, Forsberg is still the best player in this deal for me. He's got 2 goals again tonight. Yeah, I don't think I would do it. What's up with Toffoli? Either 4 points or 0? Yeah. I feel like there's not much to say there. It really depends if he's going to get Celebrini exposure. He's going to get power play 1 with Smith out, so I guess that's maybe a plus, but you want him to have power play 1 and be playing with Celebrini and Smith, ideally, and that hasn't happened as much this year. I really do think a lot of it is just, is he playing with their top guys? If not, then it's not going to go all that well. All right. thanks for answering all these questions, Nate. Happy holidays. Happy holidays to you and yours as well, Pecora. Appreciate everybody coming through. Appreciate every one of you who left a comment, interacted with the stream. Appreciate everyone. Go win another week of fantasy hockey. And let's do this thing. That is going to be all that I've got for this episode, though. Hopefully it brought you some value. Helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard or saw today came from Natural Stat Trick and 18 Skaters. Many thanks to Matt Creamer for supplying the music for this podcast. That's it, folks. Much love.